Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I have a little bit of a cold or something, so if I start coughing or, clearing my throat in the middle of it, that's why I'm doing that. Also, this is going to be a full spoiler review for The Matrix Resurrections. And also, I hope you guys had a happy Christmas or any other holidays that you may or may not celebrate. And yeah, I'm a little bit late to this one, that's why, a lot of holiday stuff going on. And look, this movie came out on HBO Max and in theaters a week after Spider-Man, which, given everything that's happening right now, I'm not going to make it to the theaters to see this. So I did watch it on HBO Max, and, I took my time with it. I watched like the first 40 minutes, and then I watched the last hour and a half or whatever, like the next day. So I was able to like really just take my time with it. I had a lot going on, and I will rewatch this movie properly, like all at once, but I saw the whole thing, and yeah, here we go. Okay, so first off, Matrix Resurrections. This movie, like all the Matrix movies, they've always been pretty meta about themselves, right? But this movie like takes that to an extreme, to where this could almost be a parody of reboots and remakes and reboot sequels, hybrids. Like this could be a parody of all of those ideas. It's almost poking fun at Star Wars and Star Trek and all these other franchises that have been long dormant and then got a sequel or a reboot or a mixture of the two. And this movie's basically kind of making fun of that, while at the same time kind of being that, but also not being that. It's a lot. This movie's a lot, and I think that's my first major criticism of this movie, is that this feels like they had 2 or 3 different directions that they wanted to go, but they also didn't want to make a 3-hour movie, so like a lot of the plot lines, they feel like they're on fast forward. A lot of the plot lines get introduced and then resolved really quickly, and there's a lot of really interesting ideas here, but it doesn't feel like we have enough time with most of them. Most of them just get sped right through, and it feels like this is essentially 2 movies in one right now. And I don't know, maybe they were scared that they were not gonna be able to make a 5th one, so they were like, let's just put all the ideas in here all at once. But yeah, there's a lot that happens in this movie, and there's no way I would be able to sit here without spending an hour and trying to break everything that happens down. But basically, this is a direct sequel to the Matrix trilogy, and they are taking into account seemingly everything, because if you don't know, it was never just the Matrix trilogy, but it was also the Animatrix, and it was the video games Enter the Matrix and The Path of Neo. All of that was canon. All of it was equally canon. The video game was canon, and Morpheus, in a post-trilogy video game, I think it was Enter the Matrix, Morpheus dies in that video game. Like, he canonically dies. And so this movie, which picks up 60 years later, Morpheus is gone, and they don't say how, but I think it's clear that they're leaving that window open to be like, yeah, that game is canon, like that game is what happened. And yeah, like a lot of the ideas that they introduce here, a lot of like the continuity stuff and the world building, I actually really do like. But like I said, it feels like we don't spend nearly enough time with any of it, and there's just so much. But basically, within the span of the last 60 years, there was a machine war, a machine civil war, because basically the humans being able to wake up were no longer producing enough energy for the machines, which seems like a thing they would have thought about before making this deal with Neo. But anyways, there was not enough energy for machines, and so now there's a machine civil war. Some of them want to stay at peace with the humans, others want to go back to the way things were, right? And that's essentially what happened. And now we start the movie 60 years later, and there is a new Matrix that has a new architect. He's called the Analyst, So I can only assume that the architect and all of those people were deleted at some point. There's a new Oracle, which is Sati from Matrix Revolutions, or yeah, Reloaded and Revolutions, right? Yeah, right? I think so. Anyways, so I guess the Oracle got deleted also. So there's like a lot of lore stuff that feels like we're missing out on. You know, like they gloss over, you know, that we get like a really quick flashback of like, oh yeah, there was a machine civil war, and then this analyst guy showed up, and now there's a new Matrix, but we're still kind of just not having an open war with them. And you know, there's a lot of questions I still have about a lot of this. And that's what I mean by like, it feels like we fast forwarded a lot through so much of this movie, because like by the end of this movie, you know, which the core of it is trying, you know, they wake up Neo, they find out he's still alive, and he was being kept alive along with Trinity, who they somehow resurrected, you know, which they kind of show like, oh, they went inside their brains and they you know, they messed around with their brains and they brought them back to life. I guess that's how that works. And basically they were keeping both of them alive in this new version of the Matrix, so that, you know, they would keep some kind of balance, I guess. And it was all about zeros and ones, and it's a lot to try and take in, given what everything else that's happening in the movie. So something about Neo and Trinity being in this version of the Matrix allowed energy output to the machines to increase. And so I don't know, to be honest with you. So Matrix version 6 here, or version 7, somehow is I don't know, it's just very different. And I think the other thing is that like they've moved forward in the timeline, because if you remember, these movies all take place in the future, but the Matrix was stuck in the turn of the century. So this new Matrix seemingly has smartphones and social media and all this stuff, and they did that because it's something about distracting people with despair or something. It's this whole monologue that Neil Patrick Harris as the analyst goes through. It's fascinating and I want to hear it again, but this is definitely a movie that like I gotta watch this a second time to fully grasp what's happening, because there's a lot that's happening. You know, and I guess that's still one of my, it's both my critique and kind of my praise of the movie, is that like there's so much happening that it's hard to grasp in one viewing. It's hard to sit here and be like, okay, I understood what happened in this movie entirely, because it's like, no, I gotta sit here and watch this thing like 3 or 4 times and really closely listen to the dialogue, because they're doing world building here, but it's all such a, you know, it's all such a psychological kind of thing that like it's how does this Matrix work? Why is this version of the Matrix so different? But anyways, the bulk of the movie is trying to get Trinity out, but they have to convince her to leave her family because she's still stuck in this version of the Matrix where she has a family and she's this whole other person. And basically by the end of it, from what I can understand, both Trinity and Neo have the code of the One now. Both of them like share the code, I guess, and now they both have the ability to alter the Matrix however they wish. Now, if you go watch the first Matrix movie, it's, you know, it could be argued that Neo doesn't really become the One until he gets resurrected. You know, he dies, and then because Trinity kissed him and she said, well, the Oracle said that I would fall in love with the One, and I love Neo, so Neo must be the One. And then if you also remember, even earlier in that first movie, Oracle told Neo, maybe you're waiting for your second life, and so he had to die first in order to become the One. It's all kind of complicated about how it all works, but I guess somehow Trinity was always a key part of the code that created the One, that let Neo be the One. And so now she kind of shares that power. So by the end of the movie, they're seemingly both able to fly around and be the One, and they easily kind of take care of the analyst, Neil Patrick Harris, and they're basically like, we're gonna create this world our own way. We're gonna like alter things ourselves. we're gonna make a perfect Matrix, basically. Now, you know, it can be argued, why would they still want a Matrix to be around? It feels like they could easily at this point shut the Matrix down and free everybody. So I'm kind of questioning things there as to why they're still letting this be a thing. I don't know. I think ultimately the machines, even the ones that they have, you know, humanity has teamed up with, the machines are still going to need a power source, right? Because even the ones that are on their side, even the programs and everything, it's like they still need a power source. Something has to be powering these machines, right? So they need a way to fix the real world. They need a way to bring back the sun, essentially, is what they need. That way they can be like, okay, machines, you don't need humanity, so you don't have to enslave us. We brought the sun back. Like, that's how you would fix that problem in the real world, right? But anyways, this movie seemingly ends with Neo and Trinity winning the day and kind of being entirely in control. But you know, there is an Agent Smith and a Morpheus. I don't know how Agent Smith is back, really. Like, I know that this is somehow like Neo created this Agent Smith and then Neo created this Morpheus inside of an even smaller Matrix that he was programming while he was inside the Matrix. You see what I mean? There's so many different ideas happening here that and they're so rushed through that it feels like you got to sit here and really think this through and listen to every piece of dialogue and be like, okay, how is he Agent Smith and how is he back and what's up with this new Morpheus and why is he Morpheus but he's also not Morpheus? It's very complicated, I think. So I don't know, to be honest with you guys, I gotta watch this movie again, and I think that is, you know, again, that's both this movie's biggest criticism and also kind of its biggest praise, is that, like, and I tweeted this a while ago, I am at this point in my like nerd culture fandom where if an entry in a franchise, whether that be an episode of TV or a movie or a video game or anything, if an entry in the franchise comes out and it's not the greatest, it's kind of disappointing, that's okay for me, because I am now more invested in the world building and the lore than I am in whether this movie is entertaining for the next 2 hours, you know? And maybe that's crazy talk, I don't know, but like for me it's like, okay, I have long accepted that no sequel to the Matrix will ever be as good as the first Matrix. That's never gonna happen. The same thing goes with Jurassic Park. No Jurassic Park or Jurassic World will ever be as good as the first Jurassic Park. It's not gonna happen. Okay, some people would argue the same thing with Star Wars. No Star Wars, no show, no movie, nothing will ever be as good as those original movies. And if you can accept that as a fan, if you go into these movies accepting that as a fact, then I think it actually opens you up to having a much better time with these movies, because I did not go into this movie saying, oh, maybe it'll be as good as the first movie. No, it'll never be that good. None of it will ever be that good. You know, it could be interesting. It could do some really cool world building, but it will never be as good as the first movie, and I knew that going in. And I think because of that, I am much more open to, you know, experiencing this movie than a lot of people, because this movie is getting dumped on. This movie is going out there saying how it's terrible and it's the worst thing ever, which it's not. To be completely honest with you, I would rather watch this movie than watch Revolutions. Okay, I would watch this movie before I watch the third movie again. So if anything, this is now in third place for all the Matrix movies. So there's that first. But also, it's like, this is not a terrible movie. It's just, they just tried to do so much. You could argue it's paced very strangely and it's structured very strangely, and it should have been maybe 2 movies instead of just this one. But as far as, you know, a fan of the world building and the lore and what's happening after the trilogy and all of this stuff that I wanted to know, I'm happy with it. I still need to kind of understand a lot of it, but I'm happy with what I saw and what I do understand. So yeah, that's the Matrix Resurrections. Is it as good as the first one? No. Is it even as good as Reloaded? No, not really. It's better than Revolutions, I think, or yeah, Revolutions. So yeah, I don't know. I think there is just, this is just another lesson. This movie, along with all the Star Wars and all the Jurassic Parks and all the, these long running franchises that they either get these semi sequel reboots or they get these sequels long after they've ended. It's, if we can just accept and just openly say, okay, it's not going to be as good as the first Matrix, I know that, then it actually opens us up for having a pretty good time. Because I don't go in there with these crazy expectations. Is this going to be as good as one of the greatest movies of the last century? No, of course not. Why? The chances of that happening? No, it's not going to be. It was never going to be. So, but I did enjoy this. I did. There's a lot of interesting ideas they put into this. A lot of great moments. And I guess that's my only thing is that if anything, this felt like a lot of really interesting moments that were maybe not explored enough and maybe rushed through a lot. But yeah, I was happy with this. I was okay with this. I feel like there does need to be a comic or something released showing us that Machine Civil War. I want to know the finer details of okay, but what happened to Zion exactly? What physically happened to Zion? Where are all those people? Because in this movie we see maybe 30 people total, right? So where's everyone at? Where's all those rave dancers in the cave? Where did all those people go? Stuff like that. I don't know. Ultimately, I was fine with this movie. It's not horrible or terrible or anything like that. It's definitely got its issues, but as far as it's fine. I wish it had more kung fu fights, I guess. I wish there was more martial arts. A lot of it seemed more focused on their abilities and using telekinesis and slow motion jumps, stuff like that. So yeah, I do wish there was more actual cool fights, so there's that. But as far as world building goes and answering questions as to what happened afterwards, I was fine with this. I liked it. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought about Matrix Resurrections. Let me know where it ranks in your Matrixology series. And yeah, let me know if you hated and despised this movie, or it's fine. It's not this horrible thing. It's fine. Yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.